Well, a good question. I mean, this is a great hotel. It's opened last year. We're here in Chicago for our full-service conference. Fellini Bar and Restaurant is one of the concepts that we've had in our European Radisson Blues for some time now. First time here in North America, and it's, I think, fair to say it's been a roaring success in a city like Chicago, which is full of great restaurants and bars. Will it come to Asia? No plans yet. As you know, in Asia, James, you have to be locally relevant. So Indian restaurants in India, Chinese restaurants in China. We have introduced some of our restaurant and bar concepts, however, into a number of our hotels in Asia this year. Not Fellini, but the RBG concept in our Park Inns. We opened a Park Inn in the Philippines on Monday of this week. It has an RBG grill, a mid-price food and beverage concept, which is very successful in Europe and here also in the United States. And then, of course, in India we have the Kebab Factory, which has become a bit of an institution in our hotels and something that we're known very widely for in India. And in fact, we are introducing that into some of our hotels in Thailand at the moment. So Fellini, no plans yet, but the ones that we do have, RBG and the Kebab Factory, very much spread across the Asia-Pacific region these days.
Speaking of growth, tell us a little bit about the pipeline coming up and maybe some of the hotter countries, so to speak.
Sure. Well, we've had a good 2 years. I've been with the group for 2 years now. We've opened 35 new hotels in the last 2 years. We've signed another 50 hotels. This year we add another 15 new hotels. So we closed last year at 88 hotels. We'll reach and surpass that magic 100 hotels in operation by the end of this year. So our track record to this point has been very good. Where's hot? Well, our core market is India. We're expanding in places like in Indonesia, the Philippines, and of course China. Outside of those core countries, where's hot? I've been to Phnom Penh recently. Cambodia seems to be opening up. There's lots of interest on the back of the same fundamentals as you're seeing in other countries of Asia Pacific at the moment. That is growing visitor numbers to the country on the back of global travel and tourism growth. So I'd say we're more likely to do something in Cambodia than we are in maybe Sri Lanka or one of these other countries. Vietnam is hot at the moment, but I think Cambodia for us next.
Are you seeing a lot of demand generally across the industry? I mean, it seems China slowed down a tiny bit, but are you still seeing there's a fair few opportunities out there for the taking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, STR will tell you that China alone needs 450,000 new rooms in the next 5 to 7 years just to cope with domestic demand. That's not any addition of outside demand into China. It's just to fulfill the domestic demand that's being created by all this infrastructure spending that's been happening in China and more people moving around. So China is hot and it will remain hot. What's happening in China, however, is that the demand for new hotels is moving away from the traditional eastern seaboard into the center and the west of the country. And that throws up some challenges for all of us hoteliers because, of course, the average room rates that you achieve in some of these secondary and tertiary locations, not as strong as on the eastern seaboard. But of course, it's only a matter of time. We've seen Shanghai and Beijing transform themselves in the last 10 years. It's not going to take that long for places like Kunming and some of the secondary cities in China to be able to sustain higher average room rates. India the same. We're seeing in our business anyway huge growth in India. We've just announced recently a strengthening of our management platform there. KB Khatri was the founder of our business in India. We've elevated to chairman. We've introduced somebody from here in the United States, an Indian national with a US passport, Raj Rana, as our new chief executive in India. And that's designed very much to bolster our management capability to reach 100 hotels in India in the next 3 years. And we're very much on track to do that today.
Obviously with some issues in the past as far as development goes, not for Carlson but just generally speaking, in India with expectations of rate obviously affecting loans and borrowing.
Yes.
Do you think, is everything settled down now in India? Are expectations a bit back to normal now, so to speak?
Well, look, I think I was on a panel in January of this year, and a number of my industry colleagues were lamenting about the oversupply in Delhi, for example, the fact that because there was more supply, that was affecting everybody's performance. I didn't buy that. From my point of view, we've got 21 hotels in Delhi. Sure, there has been a short-term slowdown because of the increased demand, the increased supply, I'm sorry, but demand has grown every year for the last 13 years in India, and it's been double-digit demand growth. So where else in the world can you say that other than probably India and China? The medium to long-term prognosis is very, very strong in India, and given that we've got a very strong local management team there, we're very positive about India going forward.
And what about the region generally speaking, performance this year? Are you expecting a good year in Asia Pac?
Yeah, I am. We've had a good start, which is good news. We're 6.5% up in RevPAR terms in the first month of the year, in January. That's a like-for-like against same period last year. February is shaping up to be somewhat similar. I think, James, there is a correlation between global stock markets and what they're doing and the hotel industry. And we've seen a number of stock markets in Asia Pacific grow by as much as 30% in the last 3 or 4 months. That is having a very positive effect, I think, on companies' attitudes towards business travel, and we, like I think the sector generally, are enjoying that growth. So I think it's a double-sided coin. On the one hand, you've still got global uncertainty in financial markets that's been driven largely out of what's happened in Europe, but on the other hand, stock markets are going up, and as I say, that does have a positive effect on average rates.
So any countries you think might slow down a little bit? Australia is obviously a very, very tricky market in terms of investing in hotels. What are you expecting?
Well, Australia's a small market for us, and it's one where I think it's fair to say we're opportunistic. We have a small team down there based in Sydney. We're not out there aggressively looking for properties because, as you say, it's a big country but a small market. We think there are quicker and easier opportunities for our growth in mainland Asia. And again, outside of India and China, I don't want to make this interview just about India and China. We like the Philippines, we like Indonesia, we like Thailand, and then those smaller emerging markets, and we've talked about Cambodia, we've talked about Indochina generally, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. We've got a number of, we've been in Bangladesh for the last 5 or 6 years. We've got 3 other opportunities in Bangladesh. It's a relatively small market, but a lucrative one. So look, there's plenty of opportunity in Asia. For us, Australia is something that if something comes along that we like, we would give it a good go, but we're not being overly proactive down there at the moment.
Any possibility of looking at Christchurch with that city being rebuilt and quite a few hotels coming online there in the next 5 years?
No, we've no plans really for New Zealand. For us to go into a country like New Zealand, we need a platform. We need a number of hotels, and I'm not really interested in going into a country for 1 or 2 hotels.
Just onto some business trends at the moment. What are some of the biggest trends you're seeing as far as Asia Pacific's concerned with business travellers?
Okay, well, I'm glad you qualified that by business travellers, because I think that's our business. 65-70% of our business is business travel, and I think there's some interesting trends. I've talked about global stock markets and the linkage there. I think that's one. Social media is playing an increasingly important role, I think, in business travel. Gone are the days where you went to any of the social media sites just for a leisure reference. I think global corporate travellers now and regional and national corporate travellers are going to these websites and looking for recommendations of where to stay. I think that's important. Of course, loyalty programs play a big part, and recognition of regular guests is a very, very important topic, I think, for the industry. And for us here at Carlson Residor, we've had tremendous growth in our program, Club Carlson, in the last 2 years. We're up at over 10 million members globally. In the Asia Pacific region, we're up 500,000 members, and that's come from a very low base 2 years ago. We're looking to sign another 250,000 members this year alone, focusing not just on the single corporate traveller, but also on small businesses, small companies, and meeting planners in the MICE arena. So very excited about bolstering our presence with our loyalty program. And the statistics really bear out the fact that loyal customers, they spend more money in your hotels. We did an analysis of 2012. An average Club Carlson member spends 30% more on average in our hotels and stays for 30% longer than a non-Club Carlson holding card. So the more members we get, the more loyalty that we create, and the more loyalty that we create, the more business we can drive into the hotels for our owners. So I think that's an important, it's not a new trend, but it's becoming increasingly important, I think, in the hotel business. And it's all about creating the right guest experience for those regular guests to come back and stay in your hotels rather than somebody else's hotels.
How loyal do you think travellers are being in Asia Pacific at the moment? It's not like America where it's fly one airline, stay at one hotel, but are you seeing a lot more loyal travellers turning up now?
Well, I've just given you some statistics around the usage of our Club Carlson program and the number of people that were actually signing up as new members. So there's obviously something there that is working in the market. And I say, again, it's about recognition. It's about people being recognized. And I think that's the key thing with people often talk about points being the key aspect of loyalty programs. I think that's a nice to have, the free nights that you get from using your card on a regular basis. But what it's really about is recognizing your loyal customers. And of course the other thing is technology in business today. That's another important aspect, and I think we're the only hotel group across all of our brands that offers free Wi-Fi in our hotels, and I think that's important to the business traveller because gone are the days where you would spend $20 or $25 a day to pay for Wi-Fi connectivity. People expect it as a given these days. And as I say, I think we're the only hotel company that offers it across all our brands in Asia today, so I'm very proud about that.
Free Wi-Fi was one of the things I was going to ask, actually. A lot of hotel chains don't do that, especially in Australia. A lot of hotel chains don't do it there at all.
Yeah.
Do you think this is the year where we really will see an across-the-board free Wi-Fi as a standard in hotels, not just with your group, but across other chains as well?
I don't understand why the other chains haven't followed our lead. I have to say that it is a cost to our business, and there is some foregone revenue by not charging the guest for it. But as I say, we believe as a global organisation, so this is not just me in Asia Pacific, as a global organisation, we made the decision more than 12 months ago that Wi-Fi was an important free Wi-Fi and good bandwidth with your Wi-Fi. That's the other aspect, not just the cost, it's also the bandwidth. Is an important attraction strategy for business travellers in our hotels. And it's working, as I've demonstrated.
Any other requests that you're getting? Are you getting people saying, can we get airport transfers or complimentary parking or anything like that? Any other real trends that you're seeing?
Well, no, as I say, social media I think is a big one. The free access to Wi-Fi is another one. Low-cost carriers and what they're doing to make travel more accessible for the corporate traveller. Again, low-cost carriers have normally been associated with leisure travellers. But I think in many parts of Asia what we're seeing is a switch in a world that is globally financially uncertain from the more established mainline carriers to these low-cost carriers, and the sheer numbers of people that we're talking about, particularly in the domestic markets of India, China, Indonesia, is enabling more business travel to happen. So these are the fundamental trends that we're seeing in the market.
Across the region with aviation, obviously all the extra aircraft that AirAsia are getting and Scoot are getting and Jetstar are getting, and it's obviously quite exciting times for travel in Asia generally, isn't it?
Well, I think so, and you've heard me speak already at this conference, James, about the WTTC and the World Travel Tourism Corporation, what they're predicting in terms of travel growth. It really is an exciting time to be in the hotel business. I often get asked at investment conferences, so when is it all going to dry up? Well, it's not going to dry up in my lifetime, that's for sure. And it's not about cross-border travel so much as it is about domestic demand now. WTTC is saying that in China alone, from the year 2000 to the year 2020, business travel alone accounts in the year 2000 for $18 billion worth of annual business domestically in China. That will grow to $227 billion of business by 2020. In 2 decades, 20 years, in China alone, you go from 18 billion to 227 billion domestic demand. It's enormous, the numbers. $115 billion of of high-speed rail investment by the Chinese government just on the eastern seaboard of China, and what that's doing to move people around the country to generate domestic demand for hotels is enormous. And it's not just China, it's happening in India, and it's happening Indonesia, it's happening in the Philippines, albeit at a slower rate than China, but the same fundamentals are happening. So, we're very, very keen to really carve a niche for ourselves in the mid-market, because that's where we think the domestic demand for business and leisure travel, the trending is going in the next 20 years in the Asia Pacific region. So we're setting ourselves up with our Park Inn by Radisson brand and our Radisson 4-star brand, and in select locations with our Radisson Blu 5-star brand, but mainly in the 3 and 4-star market to cater largely for this domestic demand in emerging Asian markets.